Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss the growing scandal surrounding the Tories' failures to replace buildings once they've reached the end of their life, as the crisis is now believed to extend to other public buildings, including courts and including hospitals. I'd also like to discuss the political side of this because it occurs to me that Labour may have two golden opportunities here. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So we're now learning, I suppose again, should be obvious, that maybe 1,000 schools could be in danger of imminent collapse, but also hospitals and courts. The issue is the technique for producing these sort of lightweight concrete structures for these buildings, known as RAAC. The buildings have an effective lifespan of 30 years, which is fine. That's fine, as long as the government attends to a rolling programme of building to replace structures coming towards the end of their life. It doesn't really matter. But this is not how Conservatives operate. They see it as their job to hive off as much public money as possible into the pockets of themselves and their patrons. But this is now a huge scandal, and Labour must make it a monumental scandal. But also consider another opportunity. But first, the scandal. Now, if I were Labour, I sort of touched on this yesterday, but I'd really hammer this home now. I would be making a great deal of fuss that there are goodness knows how many children who have been sitting underneath concrete which could collapse at any moment. The government have not only allowed this, but they have concealed the information from parents as well as teachers. And I mean concealed. I don't just mean didn't do enough to inform. Labour have been pushing for this information all of this year at least. The Tories have been withholding it. They've been trying to hide the scale of the problem. It's not even like they've been working on a way to deal with it behind the scenes. They haven't done that either. They've just been hiving off money to their mates and trying to conceal the problems left behind. It's a parallel situation to the state of the Russian army, really, the one that invaded Ukraine. Putin thought he'd been investing huge sums of money into modernising his army. It was an amazing surprise to him when it all got stuck in the mud and fell to pieces and got nicked by tractors. Because it transpired that what had actually been happening is the oligarchs who had been entrusted with the money to spend on the military had actually been going, well, we don't really need much of a military. We'll just spend it on super yachts and mansions instead. And just do the bare minimum to look like they're building up the military. You know, oh, maintenance, we don't need any of that. We don't need that. We don't need that. I want a super yacht. Just to make it look like Russia had a military. And as long as it was never put to a serious test, no one would ever know. That's what the Tories have been doing. They've just been thinking, well, it'll be fine, won't it? Oh, these buildings have a lifetime of 30 years. Hey, it's probably fine. I mean, you know, my washing machine, it says 10 years. It's been going for 15. It'll be fine. You know, any spending that they don't think will be immediately noticed, they divert into the hands of themselves and their paymasters. That's what the Tories are. They are the functionaries of oligarchs. Only at the moment they're being led by an actual oligarch. And even now that the scandal has broken, the Tories are still trying to conceal the identity of the schools affected. This also presumably means hospitals and courts. It is madness. I don't just mean morally, but politically as well. What if someone dies? It's all right saying there's going to be... I mean, we're going to know 157 of these schools because they're being closed. But what about the hundreds of others that aren't being closed? What if next week a child is killed in a school from crumbling concrete? And the government knew that the school was at risk. They've got it on a list. Rishi Sunak's got it on a list. Gillian Keegan, the Education Secretary's got it on a list. And they kept that information to themselves. They'd be utterly finished. Oh, there's no way of surviving that. Labour really need to whip up public concern here because we don't actually want someone to die. We want the Tories to suffer at the hands of the public as a result of this. We don't actually want someone to die for it to happen. You know, so Labour need to be asking parents, how do you know that your child isn't sitting under unstable concrete next week when your child's at school? How do you know that they're safe if the government won't tell you which schools are affected? Basically, if your child is in a school building that's more than 30 years old, might be on the government's list. You've got no idea because they're not telling you. They're not telling the teachers. They're not telling anyone. They're not telling us. This is the most potent stick that Labour have had to beat the Tories up in my lifetime, I think. They are literally risking the lives of children in order to conceal the scale of their misappropriation of public funds. This wasn't just carelessness that has come home to roost, because it's now come home to roost and they're still trying to conceal it. There's been no efforts to at least go, like Rishi Sunak could have said, well, this wasn't my problem. This was a problem from previous leaders, but I'm going to deal with it. He could have stood up there. He could have taken some leadership. He's chosen to conceal. But as well as the scandal, Labour may have been gifted another opportunity as well. Because this is a problem which not only needs fixing, but the public will demand it be fixed. And the more you highlight to the public just what a serious problem this is, the more they will demand it be fixed. Now, the Tories won't fix it. There isn't even time if they wanted to. So Labour are going to have to fix it. The government that forms after the next election is going to have to fix it. Now, Labour, as always, when they want to win elections, have to be whiter than white when it comes to their spending plans. Spending plans have to add up to tax revenues. That is the millstone they must carry in order to be electable. Doesn't matter that borrowing for the purpose of investment in infrastructure is fine because that pays itself back in terms of a boost to the economy. No, the papers won't have that, and therefore the public won't have that. But it'll be impossible to embark on this absolutely essential rebuilding programme with the current economic situation without borrowing, won't it? So what are Labour going to do? Say, oh, sorry, we're not going to borrow for it. You'll just have to carry on with your child being under unstable concrete. Well, the public won't stand for that. Labour have the chance here to say that although their day-to-day spending plans will still add up to the tax revenues, that clearing up this Tory crisis is going to need borrowing. It's the only way to deal with it quickly. They can say the Tories should have been doing this over the last 13 years. They haven't. We need to do it. And now that the situation's critical, we need to do it quickly. We're going to have to borrow for that. And with lives at stake, I don't think voters are going to argue. And once you accept that borrowing for the investment in infrastructure is politically acceptable, because investors don't get worried about that, it may loosen some of Labour's shackles. But first things first, before you get to that point, the public need to be mindful of the risk to people in hospitals and children in schools. There is a mortal threat to lives here, and the government are keeping the threat under wraps. And more to the point, it's not at all obvious they're doing anything to reduce that threat. Get the public to turn on the Tories, then the rest can follow. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.